What's interesting to me right now is that medical students are people are basically choosing IR at a point in time that is different than previously was. See, my generation, and pretty much probably 99% of interventional radiologists out there that are practicing, chose IR during the residency. So they made a choice between becoming a diagnostic radiologist in one of the subspecialties or becoming an interventional radiologist. Whereas now, the choice is being made by medical students. And for them, it's an interesting choice because it's interventional radiology versus every other specialty out there. And it's a completely different choice, really. It has to be taken a completely different way. I don't think people understand the gravity of that change. It's a big change, and I'll explain. So, as somebody that went into diagnostic radiology, IR spoke to me for a lot of different reasons. First of all, as a student, I rotated in the general fields, medicine and surgery. I liked patient contact, but I wasn't in love with it. And in fact, sometimes I realized too much of it could be detrimental. I mean, if you're completely inundated with the needs of patients every hour on the hour, it can lead to burnout. And that's when I started looking at fields like anesthesia and radiology, eventually choosing radiology, because the patient contact was limited. But what happened was, as I trained radiology, I realized that, sitting in front of a dark screen all day, every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, I realized that, again, for me, that wasn't the way to go. I wanted a little bit more patient contact. And not only that, I had this vague idea of being surgeon-like. In medical school, I wanted to be a surgeon, wanted to be a plastic surgeon, just like Dr. 90210, Dr. Robert Ray. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon, have my own office, see patients, etc. But those dreams died after I did my surgery rotation. I realized that I physically could not work 20 hours out of a 24-hour day. I just physically couldn't do it. So, as I was in radiology, I saw the field of IR. I saw it as a way to increase my patient contact. I saw it as a way to be surgeon-esque, surgeon-like. Not truly being a surgeon, because again, I'm not trained in surgery in any way, shape, or form. Not a surgeon at all, but I could be surgeon-like. And so IR spoke to me, and it was sort of an obvious choice. Sitting there, diagnostic radiology, here's the field of IR. It's available. It wasn't crazy competitive at that time. And different process now for medical students. They're being asked to choose IR, and theoretically they could go into any field in medicine versus IR. So, is diagnostic imaging at all part of your choice? I mean, let's say you're a medical student, you want to do interventional radiology. How much of you wants to look at diagnostic images and interpret diagnostic imaging? Because if that percentage of you is 0%, then you should really consider a different field. Now again, I don't know a lot about vascular surgery, to be honest, but it seems to be an alternative to IR. In theory, it gives you the ability to treat arteries and veins. It allows you to do minimally invasive treatments. It also has some advantages over IR. I believe it's a 5-year training versus 6 or 7 years for IR. And some of the political issues with IR in terms of getting privileges at a hospital and becoming an independent IR group separate of a diagnostic group, or dealing with things like pseudo-exclusive contracts, those things don't really apply to vascular surgeons. So if you're a medical student and you're looking at IR, I'm curious why haven't you looked at vascular surgery? Because if you don't really care about images, if you don't really care about non-vascular IR or procedures, if you're interested in arteries and veins, and you don't want to deal with really kind of paralyzing hospital politics, then you should probably consider, and you actually would want to get your training done in less time, 5 years versus 6 or 7, then again, it was just something I would consider. Again, this stems from the initial thought here. The minimally interesting thought I had was that we had a different choice than a lot of the medical students. Our choice was diagnostic radiology versus IR. To me, IR was the obvious choice. But if you're a medical student and your choice is IR and every other specialty in medicine, I think you need to do a little more digging and figure out, why is it IR? Why is it specifically IR and not anything else? Strong Arm D.